Please remember not to unmute yourself or interrupt the presenter, and feel free to put any questions or discussion in the chat, and we will try and get to them as you do it. We'll save some for the end for the presenter to answer questions. James Vance comes to us with a lot of knowledge in this next topic, which is awesome, remote Falcon. If you haven't seen it yet, get out there and check it out. I'm sure you're going to do that after his presentation. This is a great way to get your fans and the people visiting your show involved with your show. I'm using it for the first time this year. Haven't been an expert at it yet, but I will get it going. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to James.
All right, thank you. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Okay. As Scott mentioned, my name's James Vance, and I'll be doing a presentation today on remote Falcon. So I guess a little bit about me first off. So I live in Northwest Arkansas, a small town called Lowell, which is kind of nestled between the home of University of Arkansas and Walmart. And I actually started doing light shows in 2015. Started off with a single LED strip that I actually ran off of an Arduino with some code that I wrote, and then stumbled upon the vast world of holiday lighting and Driftwood Light Show. It's actually the name of the show that I do. This is me and my wife and my 4-year-old. I'm actually a software engineer professionally. I've been doing that for about 10 years, primarily working in Java. So what is Remote Falcon? Remote Falcon is actually a free web application that you can sign up for and use that works with both FPP and Xschedule, and it allows your viewers to be able to interact with and control your light show. And really the best way to do it is to get into it with a demo and just walk through what it's capable of doing. Let me see if I can move this. All right, so the website for Remote Falcon is pretty simple to find. So it's just going to be remotefalcon.com. And the first step to do when you actually go to Remote Falcon is going to be to sign up if you haven't already done that. And signing up is pretty simple. So at the bottom, you can sign up, and all you need to do that is your light show name, email address, and a password. The show name isn't something that you have to stick with forever once you sign up. So you can change this after signing up with some caveat to that. And then verifying that you're actually not a robot and clicking sign up. And after that happens, you'll get an email at the email address that you entered, just asking you to verify it. Just kind of one more measure to make sure don't get a lot of fake accounts signed up on here. And also, before we get too far into Remote Falcon, I do want to call out that there is an in-depth wiki that covers everything that you're going to see today, and probably things that you won't see today due to just not having enough time to get through all of it. And this is a good place to start that covers how to sign up and just kind of how to navigate the site and configure everything. Along with this, there is also a Facebook group that you can join, also called Remote Falcon, that has a lot of people in there who are knowledgeable with a lot of different ideas, and it's a great way to kind of bounce ideas and issues off of. All right, so once you validate your email, then the next step would actually be to sign in, and we'll go ahead and do that. And this will be the page that you land on. So this is the dashboard page, which we'll actually come back to in a little bit. But what you'll notice first off is at the top will be the name of the show that you used whenever you signed up, and this URL here. So right now I'm running this locally. So right now it's showing localhost, but when you sign up, you will be given your own URL, which is essentially your own website, which is your showname.remotefalcon.com. And probably the first thing that you'll do when you sign up is you'll want to click on that link so you can see what your web page actually looks like. So this is the default web page that is created for you whenever you create your account. This is the same website that your viewers will go to in order to interact with your show. And you can see there's some placeholders up here, such as entering your show title, your intro. You can put images in there, and then you have some sections that that show like playing now and next selection, which we'll get into more details on that in a little while as well. So the nice thing about this is that this website is, I'm going to say, 99% customizable. There are a couple of things that that you can't do with it, and I'll get to that as well. But you can change colors, you can change layout, and really make this this website look how you want it to look. And then below that are kind of your first steps that you need to take when you first sign up for Remote Falcon, and that is setting up FPP or Xschedule, depending on which one you use, to work with Remote Falcon. And when you click that, then you'll be given the steps to set up the plugin for Falcon Player, and also the steps to set up for Xschedule for whichever one you use. And most importantly is this nice long string of text here, which is your remote token. You can kind of consider this a password, and I will reset mine after this presentation. And so you don't really want to share it with anybody, because this is the token that's used to tell Falcon Player and Xschedule which show it's communicating with in the background. And so what we're going to do is we're actually going to head over to Falcon Player and look through what that setup actually looks like. So in order to install the plugin on Falcon Player, it can be found by default under the plugin manager. And I actually already have it installed, but under available plugins, you should be able to find Remote Falcon within the list and simply click the install plugin button. And after the plugin finishes installing, then you'll be able to find Remote Falcon under the content setup tab. And so when you go to the plugin, this is what the layout is going to look like. A couple things will show is what version it's currently running, and whether or not the plugin is actually actively running on FPP. And then for a few of the initial setups that you'll need to do. So the first thing, the most important part, is this remote token. And this is where you will copy this token here and place it in this field and click update. And that will update the plugin so that it knows, it can kind of correlate the accounts. So the plugin knows that it is going to be interacting with the show with that remote token. And next up is the remote playlist. So what you'll want to have, and I'll go over to my playlist tab, is you'll want to have a playlist that is specifically set up just to be used with Remote Falcon. So as you can see here, I actually have two playlists. So I have a playlist called just my scheduled show. And so this is one that I would run on a normal schedule. And another playlist, which is called just for Remote Falcon. And that's really what it is. So this is only going to be used to get sequences into Remote Falcon. This won't be part of any scheduled playlists, so it'll just be used for syncing. So back in our plugin, this is where I would actually select the name of the playlist that I want to sync with Remote Falcon. And so I would select it and click Update. And this will show which playlist is currently synced with Remote Falcon, just in case you forget. The request and the vote fetch time. So what this is it's a configurable field that essentially tells the plugin how far before the end of a sequence it needs to go and fetch the next one. So the default is 10. So what that means is while I have a sequence playing in Remote Falcon, when there are 10 seconds left on that sequence, then it will reach out to Remote Falcon to see if there are any requests that were put in by a viewer, and it will bring that request in. And as soon as the sequence finishes playing, then it'll play that request. So I made this configurable because some networks are slower than others. And so if at any time it doesn't seem to be pulling in requests the right way, then you can set it to something higher to ensure that the plugin has time to reach out to Remote Falcon. Interrupt schedule is a kind of a yes or no option here that will determine whether or not a scheduled playlist will be interrupted if a viewer places a request. If this is set to no, then that means the normal scheduled show will, or the normal scheduled sequence will finish before it plays the request. If you set this to yes, then if a viewer places a request for a sequence while your normal scheduled show is playing, then it will immediately interrupt that current schedule. It will play their request. And then if there are no requests after that, then your schedule will resume where it left off at the point that it was interrupted. And then the last few are just kind of things to that maintain the plugin. So anytime you make changes to your playlist or your request about fetch time, you'll want to restart the plugin. And what the auto restart does is if you have this set to yes, then anytime you make a change to your playlist or this time here, then it'll automatically restart the plugin for you. So you don't have to worry about doing that. Previously, you actually would have to restart FPP altogether. So made some changes that were playlist or that were less intrusive, where you can actually just restart the plugin itself. And then at any time, if you kind of want to hit the halt button on it, then you can stop the plugin altogether, and that will stop any incoming requests or any incoming votes. So the plugin setup is pretty straightforward. Tried to keep everything in here minimal, and leave most of it on the website side. All right, so let's talk about our viewer page. So when you get into Remote Falcon, then there will be a link here called Viewer Custom Page. And there's a few options in here that you can use to download the template and also upload any changes that you have. So the top one is to download your current page. So if you've made changes to it already and you want to edit what you currently have, then you can download the current one. If you want to download the default page, if you're just wanting a fresh start, or if you need to reference it with something that was on the default page, then you can download the default template as well. So this show on viewer page gallery. So we're going to hop over there. And this is a good place to look if you are not necessarily versed in HTML or website design. You can actually look, and I might have to go over here. So you can look on the viewer page gallery, and these are going to be pages that different light shows had decided to display on this web page. And so you can look through and you can see how Wesley Lights set up their show website, and we have Tell Family Lights. And so there's a lot of different customization that you can see can be done with these pages. And if you see one that you like, you can give it a heart, and you can also download this page so that you can look at the different HTML and the styling that was done in the page. So then going to the page, when you download your template, this is what you'll end up seeing when you download it. So it'll actually download an HTML file that already has your light show name on it. And you'll need to open this up in Notepad++, or I use VS Code. And this will, there's some comments at the top that kind of show some of the different things that are used in the page. And each one of these sections here are kind of the styles for the different areas of the web page. And there's comments here that show what each of those sections do. So the styles that they modify. And I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail on this because I want to make sure I can cover more remote Falcon stuff than web design stuff. And then down towards the bottom is where you actually have kind of all the text and stuff that shows up on your show. So you can enter show title and any sort of other information that you want. The important things that you don't want to remove or modify are the things that sit between these little curly braces. And so these are the tags that are used by Remote Falcon to essentially insert the data into your website.
Web creators,
so, whatever is currently playing, Remote Falcon will know to go in here and insert now playing in that area. And the same with these areas here. And whenever you are done modifying your page, then you can click the browse button on the upload. And then as soon as you upload your changes, then refreshing, and you should be able to see the updates on your page. A couple of the other things on here is you can actually modify the page title and the page link. So the page title is what shows up here. So if I was to change that to shows and then refresh, then you can see it updates the title up there. And then the icon that shows up on the tab as well. So in this case, I actually used an icon that I use for my light show. And so it kind of gives a little extra layer of configuration. All right, so we're going to head back into the plugin, and I'm actually going to sync this playlist with Remote Falcon, and then refresh the page. And so now you can see the 5 sequences that were part of the playlist, the Just for Remote Falcon playlist, now show up in the viewer page. And so this is what the viewers will actually use to go in and select to play and to request. The sequences will also appear. Let me refresh this. The sequences will also appear under the Sequences tab. And here you can make some other changes to it. So a few of the things that you can actually do is you can set the visibility of the sequence. So if you have a sequence in here that for some reason you don't want your viewers to be able to see, then you can click that icon and it will hide the visibility of it, so that when the viewers go to your page, it actually won't show up in the list. So they won't be able to request that particular sequence. Another option is you can delete the sequence altogether if you just don't want it as part of the viewer list. This sequence name is going to be the same names that they appear in Falcon Player X Schedule. And if you want them to appear different to your viewers, but you don't necessarily want to rename your sequence in FPP or X Schedule, then you can update the display name to make it appear as something else for your viewer. So rather than sequence with the number 1, then we would see sequence with the word 1. And then finally, the order. If you want to modify the order on how they appear on the page, then you can drag and drop the sequences and it'll update the order on this page as well. Or you can just simply click sort alphabetically and it will resort all the sequence names by the display name. All right, so now it is time to kind of get into the meat and potatoes of Remote Falcon. And that is going to be under the viewer settings page. So this is where you'll set up and configure how the viewer is going to interact with your show. And the very first thing is this is kind of the global toggle for viewer control. So if I was to actually turn this off and save it, now you can see pretty much everything has disappeared from the page, but there's this new part showing up that essentially says our show hours are from X time to Y time. So this is useful if for after hours, you don't want viewers placing requests on your show and perhaps accidentally turning on lights, then you can actually turn off viewer control altogether. And there is a section inside the HTML, which is this after hours message. And this is what shows up when viewer control is turned off. So you can also modify the message that appears there. I'm gonna turn that back on. All right, viewer control mode. So currently there are 2 ways which a viewer can interact with your show. The first one being jukebox and the other one being voting. So jukebox works pretty much exactly how it sounds. So a viewer will pull up your page and place a request, and those requests will get played as a queue. So if a viewer requests sequence 3 and then another one requests sequence 4, then 3 will be played first and then 4 will be played next. And then a couple of the jukebox settings that show up if you have jukebox selected is the queue depth and the request limit. So the queue depth is essentially a limit on how many sequences can be in the queue at any given time. So right now it's set to 5, which means if a viewer tries to place a request on a song, but there's already 5 songs in the queue, then it won't allow them to do it because it would exceed that queue depth. The request limit is a little more confusing, but in the wiki, I do have a good example set up. And so what the queue limit does is it prevents the same sequence from being requested back to back. If sequence 1 is currently playing and sequence 2 is up next, then a viewer will not be able to request one of those two because it is currently playing and it's up next. If a viewer comes in and places a request on sequence 3, then what we don't want to happen is for another viewer to come in and place a request on sequence 3 as well. So this request limit prevents that from happening. So if I was to set this to 1, then I would essentially say that the same request cannot show up in the queue within one request. It took me a while to even figure out how to put this into words, and so it's really difficult to kind of explain. And I tend to get a lot of questions on this as well. But the wiki kind of puts it into words a little better than I think I can come up with right now. If you don't care about duplicate requests, or you don't care about the same song being done twice, then you can set it to 0, and that will allow essentially any sequence to be requested at any time, as long as it's not currently playing or up next. So let's check out voting. So the way that voting works is when you have voting mode enabled, then this is how your sequences will appear on your page. And it's pretty straightforward. So if 5 people were to vote for sequence 2 and 4 voted for sequence 1, then at the end of your current playing sequence in Falcon Player or X Schedule, it would pull in that next winning vote and would play that particular winning sequence. And there are a couple options that you can set that are specific to voting. So you notice when I switched to voting, I got these 2 new options down here. So the first one being preventing multiple votes. So once a viewer votes on a sequence, if this is turned on, they will not be allowed to vote again until the next voting round. And then resetting the votes after a sequence. If this is turned on, then after each voting round, all of the votes for the sequences will reset back to 0. If this is off, then the votes will persist on to the next round. So if sequence 1 had 4 votes and sequence 2 had 3, then sequence 2 would start the next round with 3 votes if the reset votes was turned off. All right, so a few other options outside of the viewer control is the ability to also play a PSA. And so this is if you have a sequence that tells your viewers to turn off headlights or make sure the radio volume isn't too loud or to just generally be considerate of those around them, then you can turn this option on. And when you do, you get a couple other things to choose from. So you can choose which sequence is going to be your PSA sequence. And so this will be something that would be synced with Remote Falcon from Falcon Player X Schedule. And then you would set how often you want that PSA sequence to play. So right now it's set to 3, which means, as it says here, the sequence will be played after every 3 requests or 3 votes. So if you get 3 requests in from viewers, then Remote Falcon will automatically drop in your PSA sequence to make sure that it gets played throughout the night if you constantly are having votes or requests. This message display time is for the message. Let me switch this back to Jukebox. When a viewer clicks one of the sequences on your page, then it'll actually get a message underneath that shows whether or not the request was successfully added, or if it exceeded the queue limit, or if there's some other issue that happened. And that this message display time is how many seconds you want the message to appear. So it's another way to give control over the style of your website. And then finally, this check viewer present option is to make sure that the viewer is actually at your show before they can do anything, before they can place a request or vote on a sequence. So if you turn this on, you do get a couple of different options on how you want to make sure your viewer is actually there. So one option is to use a code. And this is a code that will actually appear on the site that the user will have to enter before they place a request. So right now I have it set to 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to save that. And then on our page, there, I didn't have to refresh. There's a box that shows up that requires the user to enter that code before they can submit a request. If they try to put in a request without doing it, it's going to tell them they have an invalid code. If they do put in the correct one, then it will allow them to actually place the request. So that's a little more manual on the part of the viewer. And so the other option is to use GPS. And what this will do is when you turn this on, it's going to pull up your current location. And you also have the option to enter in a custom location in the event that this one is not accurate enough. And when you actually save the location, then it'll save that. And you can specify how many miles the viewer can be in range in order for them to place a request. So with 1 mile, so that means that the viewer would have to be within 1 mile of this location in order to place a request or vote on a sequence. On a computer, this isn't always the real accurate, but you can pull this up on a mobile device and it usually gets the location pretty precise. But in any event, you can also enter in custom latitude and longitude if you need. All right, so that actually covers pretty quickly the viewer settings part of it. And one thing that I wanted to show that actually was just released today. Previously, this used to say purge queue. So if you had requests in your queue and you just wanted to get rid of them completely, then you could click purge queue and it would remove all the requests that were placed by the viewer. So now instead of that, it actually says view queue. And what this does is it brings up all of the requests that were just made by me so that you can see which sequence has been requested and what position it's in. So sequence 2 would be set to play next, and then sequence 5 and sequence 1. If at any point you want to get rid of one of them, then you can actually delete a single request, or you can choose to delete all the requests and it'll just get rid of everything. If there's nothing there, then it shows there's currently no requests. If you have voting mode enabled, it's still the same to reset all votes. And that will go in and knock all the votes for all sequences back to 0. And then one more new piece I wanted to show. So under account settings, so as I mentioned, when you sign up, the show name that you create is not necessarily one that you're stuck with. So you can change your show name here, but the caveat is that if you change the show name, then it will also change your show website URL. So if you do that, just be aware that if you've distributed this URL before, then you'll need to redistribute to viewers so they don't end up going to the wrong place. The ability to change your password if you need to do that. If you're just fed up with Remote Falcon altogether, you can delete your account. And then here's something new. So I've had a lot of requests and questions about being able to essentially self-host this website. And so rather than your viewer having to go to driftwoodlightshow.remotefalcon.com, make it so that they could just go to driftwoodlightshow.com and perform all of the same stuff they can do from this web page. So the good news is you can now. This isn't an automatic thing. So you can actually come into the account settings and request API access, and this will notify me, and then I can reach out to you as the requester and actually get you set up to use the Remote Falcon API so that you can actually add everything to your own website. So you'll be able to add this, like the sequence list. You can pull that into your own website anytime a viewer places a request. So anything that your viewer can do here, you can add to your own website as well. So I wanted to make sure I called that out for anybody who has used Remote Falcon in the past and has asked about that. And then finally on the dashboard is where you can get an idea of how your viewers are interacting with your show. So I'm kind of in a test environment here, so I don't have much data. So I'm actually going to hop over to my actual account. And you can see at the top, we have unique page visits by date and then total page visits. So this is going to be how many unique visitors you've had. So if the same person has come to your site 10 times that day, they're only going to show up once. And then total. So if that one person visits your page 100 times, then it's going to reflect in this list. And so you can see on which specific dates, how many visitors you've had on your website. And then we have some jukebox stats. And so this shows how many requests you've had on specific dates. So here you can see on 12/16, there were 5 total requests, 3 of them for Rocking Around the Christmas Tree, and then 1 for Mary Did You Know and Into the Unknown. So you can kind of view a breakdown of what sequences viewers are requesting. And then also a total. So you can see here over the life of the dashboard here, Candy Cane Lane was requested 8 times. And then the last 4 are around voting. So this shows, and you can tell I use jukebox and not voting, but this shows how many votes were done on specific dates. And so it gives you the total number of votes and then breaks it down by which sequence had which votes. And then say similar to jukebox, like which sequences had X number of votes. And then winning statistics. So a sequence can be voted on, but not necessarily win a voting round. And so this shows how many winning votes were actually done by date and then also by sequence. At any time, you can download the stats. It'll download everything to an Excel sheet, and you can also reset your statistics if you're going, from Halloween into Christmas. And then lastly, there is a help area, and really it just takes you to the wiki, because the wiki does outline everything that goes on in both the application and in the plugin. So I think I have about 17 minutes left. So I did want to leave plenty of time for questions, because I know there's usually a lot of questions. So if we want to, I haven't been watching chat, but if we want to open it up for questions, then let's go ahead and do that.
I had a question.
Sure.
So do you have a question? So last year I tried running this. It's had like a trouble that it would like idle when someone were to select the sequence. Would that be just lag?
Yes. So that's actually why I introduced this field in the plugin.
Mm-hmm.
And so this allows you, if you have an issue with slow network on your Falcon player, on the Pi or Beagle, then you can set this to fetch the next request pretty far in advance to make sure that that your Falcon player has time to reach out to Remote Falcon and get that request and get it queued up, so it doesn't get skipped.
Okay. And then say if I were to create a QR code for this website, how would I do that?
So I know there's several people in the Remote Falcon group who have done that. And I think it would just be, you would go to any site that can generate a QR code and give it your show URL. And it should be able to just generate that QR code for you.
Okay, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, someone posted in chat. Hey, James, Rick Harris. How's it going?
Hey, pretty good.
Hey, I know we had talked last year, and I'm pretty sure that I submitted an enhancement request. So I was just kind of curious. On the jukebox, have you thought about adding a queue so people could see what is in the queue so that they know what's coming up as opposed to just the one item?
Yes. So kind of first step there was to, if I get back to it, was to display that for the user on the control panel first. And I do still plan on adding it to the actual viewer page. But I kind of want to make that an option to show either everything or just the next one. But yeah, I do plan on doing that for this year.
Yeah, because that'd be nice, because with them only seeing one, someone comes up and they go, oh, I want my song, but they don't realize that 3 people before them already selected it. So it's going to come up. And so like, say it's item number 3 on the list. They don't see it. So it falls off the list. Someone votes for it. So now you have it playing like every 3rd song 3 times in a row. Right.
And also to your point, that would kind of help potentially eliminate the the need for having to set this request limit to ensure that duplicate requests don't get dropped into the queue.
Hey, can I ask a question about the API access? from what I understand, that lets you run the system sort of from your own website, like you can have more control over things. If you went that route, does your website still need to reach out and touch remotefalcon.com once in a while to keep running, or are you totally independent?
So I guess I can give a little more information on the API part. Let me actually pull this up for you. So, really, what it is it's a set of endpoints for the API that talk to remotefalcon.com. And so there's only a handful of them. So, the ability to send a request to get what's currently playing, or the ability to send a request to add a sequence to a queue. There's really nothing special that needs to happen in order to use the API, other than the fact that it does require authentication using a JOT token. So you do kind of have to be familiar with how to do that. But other than that, it's just if your website is able to make web requests, then it should be pretty simple to add.
Okay, so but if Remote Falcon goes down for some reason, then I'm still running, or did I misunderstand that?
Yes. Sorry. I think I understand your question now. Yeah. So it's not. I guess it's not necessarily self-hosting, because yes, if Remote Falcon does happen to go down, then the API would not work, because everything is still going through remotefalcon.com.
Okay, thank you.
But I can tell you, I used it last year and actually started helping James way before the season. And I was monitoring it like every day. And I think for the entire season, it only went down maybe 3 times, I think. And all 3 times it was for a very short thing. I think James has an alarm hooked up to his headset to, if it does go down, it wakes him up in the middle of the night or whatever. So I can tell you, at least from my experience from last year, there was very little, if any.
Yeah, you're not too far off on the alarm part. So with it having been, so for those who don't know, the first year that Remote Falcon was a thing was last year, and I think, or I know, I underestimated the amount of people who had actually used it. And so I found myself multiple times, bumping up server resources to try to, keep everybody going. But that's good, because it was a great learning opportunity last year. And so it helps going into the next season, what needs to happen. In specific with the API, that was one of my biggest concerns with letting people have access to the API, which was not necessarily, I don't want to call it abuse, but perhaps doing something mistakenly that causes extra strain on the server. So when you do have access to this API, I do have limits in place that make sure that you don't place more than 100 requests within a minute. If you do, then it will block you until that minute is up, and then it'll let you place more requests. And so that was, so rate limiting is what it is. And so that's what I put into place to make sure, I could let people put this on their own website, but then not have to worry about affecting everybody else.
I have a quick.
Not currently. That is something that can, and I think, So that's a good kind of a good segue. Also, so this wiki is located in GitHub under a project called Remote Falcon Tracker. And this is the same place where you can go and put in feature requests or bugs. So given that, if pictures next to a sequence, and I'm not sure if that's, I think somebody's mentioned it, but I'm not sure if it's actually been requested in here. But if you have a feature request, if that's something that you'd like to see, then this would be a good place to add that. But as of today, it's just the sequence name shows up in the list. Sure, yeah.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Just a couple of questions, if I may. One is around the security between the connection between remotefalcon.com and the plugin installed on the Pi itself, as far as security there. And the other one is, are there some kind of advert sort of things going on in the background? Because obviously this is obviously costing you money to host and run. Because from what I can see, it looks like it's a free service that you're providing. Is this something being like some kind of click references to generate finance for yourself, or is it something you're looking to charge for moving forward?
Right. So first question about the plugin communication with Remote Falcon. So really what happens is this remote token that gets added to the request is what tells Falcon Player X schedule what show it's communicating with. It does do everything through HTTPS, and the plugin communication with Remote Falcon, that's about as secure as it gets. There isn't any sort of authentication that happens in the plugin. So it's just it literally is just a header which is encoded that gets put on the request to Remote Falcon that has that remote token. As for security on the website itself, so everything is done through, except on my local, everything's done through HTTPS. I think during an X Essential, somebody asked about DDoS, and we do have DDoS protection now. So everything is being proxied through it's Cloudflare. And so that provides a lot of the protection that's needed to, prevent any sort of external attacks. And then when you, in the site itself, everything is signed with JOT tokens for security. I do host all of this myself, so a little bit of the technical part of it. Everything's written in React.js and Node.js, and then the database is MySQL. So the app and the database run on two different servers that are essentially rented through DigitalOcean. And outside of just generous donations that have been offered in the past, I just provide this as a service because I love the hobby, and I love being able to provide something that people enjoy using, that can get their viewers that next interactive level with the show.
Right, because I coming from an IT background, I'm well aware of things like secure certificates and things like that do cost an awful lot of money, and obviously running costs of things like hosting servers and stuff also costs a lot of money. I didn't know whether it was something you were thinking of maybe implementing, whether it be some kind of banners on the web page or anything like that to sort of generate some revenue back to yourself.
That was considered whenever I first made Remote Falcon. The advertisements would never show up on the viewer page because this is totally your page. I was at one point, going to block out some space on Remote Falcon. I decided against it because as somebody who personally, I don't like to look at advertisements that's littering a website, I decided not to. And yeah, I really don't have any plans or intentions on adding advertisements. So it's yeah, like I said, it's something, something I enjoy doing, and yeah.
I think if James is following suit, like what X-Lights and FPP both are, it's people that are dedicated to the hobby and enjoy it. They're dedicating their time. Both X-Lights and FPP have servers and everything that costs money to update, but they don't charge anything for it. And donations would be highly recommended for any of those things that you see that work well. All of these programs that I see are ones that you would normally pay, quite a bit of money, if not hundreds of dollars, to get the same functionality. So I personally donate to them, but that's just my recommendation is that, hey, if you like it and it helps out, throw them a couple coins.
Yeah, no problem. I totally appreciate the time and effort that these people put in, and it's very much appreciated. And I too will be making donations to help and improve the services provided.